organization of members of a so-called religious cult with a leader they call Jesus has had three of its followers arrested in the investigation of the murder of Sharon Tate and 6 others. Those arrested are 2 women and 1 man, and the Los Angeles police said they would ask murder indictments against several others. 5 women are being held as material witnesses.
This Toon Talk 2.0 section is sponsored by Pure Family Nutrition. Start your ultimate lifestyle transformation today. Visit purefamilynutrition.com to learn how you can save 25% off of your first order at checkout.
Welcome to Toon Talk 2.0. Today we've been asked to do a deep dive on Again and Forever, their latest single release, Chop Suey Reimaged, and how you can help them become America's next top hit maker.
Yeah, that's quite a mix, isn't it? We're looking at the band, their very specific new music, and this big contest they're in right now.
Exactly. We've got a bunch of source material here, articles, band info, even stuff straight from their contest page.
Right, so the goal is to kind of piece it all together. We're looking at their vision, their sound, that really provocative album concept.
And crucially, how they're navigating this America's next top hit maker thing right now. It feels like a lot is happening for them at once.
Definitely. We need to connect the dots, see how the artistic side lines up with, well, the more strategic contest side of things.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Who is Again and Forever? What do the sources tell us about their basic identity?
Well, the Four Sand source places them firmly in Los Angeles, California, but it also mentions they're a Latin American band.
Okay, LA-based Latin American roots. But what about their core identity? What makes them tick, according to this stuff?
The sources keep coming back to this idea of a unique fusion. They talk about powerful vision, deep lyrics, and commercial success, all together.
That's an interesting mix right there. Vision and lyrics point to art, but commercial success, that's mentioned quite a bit, isn't it? They're not shying away from wanting mainstream reach.
Not at all. It seems like they want both. They want the deep art and the broad appeal, and the potential impact. One source uses some pretty strong language.
Well, yeah. Like what?
Like they're set to revolutionize the music industry, even calling them a potential supernova.
Wow, a supernova. That's ambitious. Setting the bar incredibly high for themselves.
Totally. And the description of their music matches that ambition. It's called a vibrant explosion of colors and experiences.
An explosion, okay. And it covers a wide range, not just one sound.
Seems like it. The sources mention everything from energetic anthems all the way to soul-stirring ballads. So, yeah, dynamic range seems key.
And this isn't just a garage band operation, right? I think I saw something about backing.
Yeah, that's a really important point the sources make. They apparently have massive international production backing them.
Massive international production. Okay, that definitely points towards global ambitions. They're thinking big picture.
Absolutely, which ties into this other idea that keeps popping up. They're described as not just a band, it's a movement.
A movement? What does that mean in practice?
Well, the idea presented is that their music connects with people from, all walks of life. It supposedly transcends language and cultural barriers.
So, universal appeal. Tapping into something deeper than just liking a song.
That seems to be the goal. Connecting on a fundamental level, aiming for a global audience, helped along by that big production backing.
Okay, so big ambitions, diverse sound, global backing, aiming to be a movement. Who are the actual people making this happen? The article gets into the members, right? Calls them an enigmatic collective.
Yeah, enigmatic is the word. And the masks are part of that. They often perform with masks.
Right, the masks. But the article gives us some details on the individuals behind them.
It does. It outlines these specific personas.
Yeah.
Let's start with Virus, the vocalist.
Virus.
He's described with this really interesting split soul concept. By day, he's Max presented as sincere, soulful, maybe a bit wounded.
Okay.
But then at night, as Virus on stage, He's supposedly bleeding raw pain into every lyric. It's this intense duality.
Bleeding raw pain. So the performance is like an outlet for something really intense and personal.
That's certainly how the source frames it. Almost therapeutic, maybe, but definitely raw.
Okay, who else is in this collective?
Then you've got the guitarist, Inmate Zero. He's painted as a control-obsessed perfectionist.
Control-obsessed.
Yeah, and he's called the engineer of their wall of sound.
Yeah.
He's the one shaping the chaos, apparently, turning it into something structured, almost like a ritual.
The architect of the sound, making sure the intensity has purpose. Makes sense.
And on bass, there's Theta. He's called the man of 1,000 masks.
1,000 masks.
Evocative, right? He's described as haunted by trauma, channeling his inner battles into these haunting bass lines.
Yeah.
So the bass isn't just rhythm, it's carrying emotional weight, like narrative weight.
Wow. So each member seems to bring this deep personal element. What about the drummer?
That's PHI.
Oh.
He's the mystery behind the rhythm. Apparently nearly silent off stage, just lets the drumming do the talking. Adds to the whole enigma.
So you have these distinct, intense individuals coming together. The article calls them a living organism made up of broken pieces forming a brutal, beautiful whole. That's quite an image.
It really is. Suggests strength found in maybe shared vulnerability or brokenness. And crucially, the source makes a point to say they are not a gimmick band.
Right. Despite the masks and personas, they want to be taken seriously as artists. The theatrics serve the art, not the other way around.
Exactly. The source insists the emotion and intent are genuine. It's rooted in something real, not just for show.
And that brutal, beautiful idea seems to carry over into their actual sound, doesn't it? The article breaks that down quite a bit.
It does. It talks about blending 90s grunge and 80s metal, but with this layer of cinematic modernity.
Cinematic modernity. Okay, what does that actually sound like? Can you give me the comparisons they use?
Yeah, they get really specific and honestly pretty cool. It says to imagine Alice in Chains merging with Muse at a seance conducted by Nine Inch Nails.
Whoa. Okay, let's unpack that. Alice in Chains brings the heavy, dark, grunge feel. Muse. That suggests maybe big anthemic theatrical rock.
Yeah, maybe that modern alt-rock sensibility, the scale.
And Nine Inch Nails. That points to industrial textures, maybe? Raw but meticulous production. Intense atmosphere.
Exactly. That seems to fit. And the production is described as raw but intentional. Every sound, every choice is apparently meant to jolt the listener into awareness.
Jolt them. So it's definitely not background music. It demands attention.
Right. And the article talks about their sheer sonic muzzle. It draws a direct line comparing them to Korn's raw aggression fused with the precision and emotional weight of UK giants Architects.
Okay, Korn's aggression, like that nu metal punch, combined with the technical skill and the heavy emotion you get from a band like Architects. That's a powerful combination.
It really paints a picture of heavy, complex, but also deeply felt music. The article even mentions specific things like growls, whispered verses, walls of distortion that collapse and rise again like waves.
So lots of dynamics, quiet moments, huge explosions of sound.
Totally. The overall description it lands on is metalcore intelligence meeting new metal heartache. And the final verdict, devastating and deliberate.
Devastating and deliberate. That implies the emotional impact is just as calculated as the riffs. It hits hard, and it's meant to.
And if you look at the bands they themselves list as inspirations on that Virus Vox contest page, it backs all this up.
Oh, yeah. Who do they name?
Black Sabbath, Korn, Architects, Meshuggah, and Linkin Park.
Okay, that's a clear lineage. Heavy metal roots, new metal, modern metalcore, even some progressive stuff with Meshuggah. They flat out say, rock has always been in our blood.
Yeah, they put it right there. So, yeah, the sources give us this really detailed image. A heavy band, rooted in history, but modern, ambitious, global, enigmatic, personal. It's a lot.
It really is. And all of that sets the stage for their big current project, this album.
Right. Chronicles of a Serial Killer and the Last Supper Reimagined.
Just the title, it stops you in your tracks. And the article doesn't hold back in describing it.
No, it calls it far more than a concept album. It describes it as a, wait for it, artistic grenade hurled at society's glamorization of evil and obsession with spectacle.
An artistic grenade. Okay, so it's designed to disrupt, to make you think probably uncomfortably.
That's absolutely the intention described. It's meant to explode preconceived notions and force engagement.
So what's the core concept? What makes it a grenade? The article talks about the album cover specifically, right?
Yeah, the cover is central. It apparently swaps out Da Vinci's Apostles in the Last Supper with the faces of, well, infamous killers from history.
Wow, okay. That's incredibly provocative. You can't not react to that image.
Exactly. It forces a reaction. But the sources are very insistent about the message behind that provocation. The article says the cover is as controversial as it is captivating, but its purpose is cultural critique.
So it's shock with a purpose, not just for attention. What's the critique they're making?
The core message, according to the source's interpretation, is that our society, especially through media, basically elevates monsters to sainthood. That constant focus, the true crime obsession.
It gives them this twisted kind of fame, makes them icons in a dark way.
That seems to be exactly the argument, that our fascination grants them a cultural status they shouldn't have. And there's a detail about tape on the cover.
Yeah, what was that about? Tape across the images.
The source says that tape represents the censorship we pretend to uphold. Like, we say these figures should be condemned or erased, but the tape is flimsy, it doesn't really hide them.
Ah, I see. So it's a symbol of hypocrisy. We perform outrage, but we're still consuming their stories.
Precisely. It highlights that disconnect. And the source is really firm on the intent here. It states very clearly, it is not a glorification. Instead, it's framed as a funeral.
A funeral?
Yeah, a symbolic eulogy for our loss of values in the age of voyeurism. So it's mourning what society has become, how captivated we are by the darkness, rather than celebrating the figures themselves.
Okay, that reframes it entirely. It's a critique of the audience, of the culture.
Right. The whole album is presented as a metaphorical war, where the band isn't just chasing shock, but is actively crafting cultural critique, using these really intense themes.
So this heavy concept drives the whole album. How does it actually play out in the music? The tracks are called resurrections.
Yeah, that's the term used. Instead of original songs, they take well-known classics and, as the source puts it, shreds it through the lens of society's obsession with fame, violence, and twisted heroes.
Shreds it. So completely transform it. Musically, thematically.
That's the idea. They give examples like John Lennon's Imagine, TATU's All the Things She Said, and Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun.
Wow, those are wildly different songs. A peace anthem, a pop song, a grunge classic. And they twist all of them
to fit this dark narrative, yeah. And the article stresses, these aren't covers. They're resurrections with a purpose.
And that purpose is?
Rather than glorifying their subjects, again and forever bury them beneath waves of sound and social commentary.
Bury them. So the reimagined song becomes like a sonic takedown, using the familiar melody or structure to critique the very things the album is about.
That seems to be the artistic strategy described. The music itself becomes the tool for commentary. And the contest page actually has links so you can hear some of these.
Oh, good. So people can check out their versions of Black Hole Sun or Imagine.
Yeah, and All the Things She Said, too, the radio version. It gives you a direct taste of how they execute this resurrection idea.
Okay, so the album is this big, challenging statement. Let's zero in on the lead single then, Chop Suey, Reimaged.
Right, this is positioned as a key track, a blistering reimagined version of the System of a Down original.
Blistering. System of a Down's original is already incredibly intense and chaotic. How do they change it?
They take that chaotic intensity and reshape it into something described as a theatrical, emotionally loaded cry for truth.
Theatrical, emotional cry for truth. That sounds different from the original's almost manic energy. More dramatic, maybe.
That seems to be the idea. The performance is described using phrases like eerie restraint and guttural outbursts. So, moments of quiet tension exploding into raw power.
Eerie restraint, guttural outbursts. That sounds a lot like the description of Virus, the vocalist. That split soul thing.
It really does align with that persona. And this specific reimagining gets tied to a very specific dark narrative lens in the article.
Okay, what is it again? Just reporting what the source says here.
It links the song to the chilling mythology surrounding Charles Manson.
Okay, Charles Manson. That's a heavy choice to connect to Chop Suey.
It is, and the source explains the message behind that choice. It says the reimagining paints Manson not as a monster to fear, but as a societal mirror.
A societal mirror. How does using Manson reflect back on us?
The article explains that the band uses this lens to force the listener to confront an uncomfortable truth. The line between victim and voyeur is disturbingly thin.
Ah, there's that voyeurism theme again. It keeps coming back. So, through the Manson lens, the song forces us to question our own fascination with figures like him, our own role.
Exactly. Are we just passively consuming these stories,
Yeah.
or are we somehow participating in the creation of their mythology?
Yeah.
It puts the onus back on the listener.
Yeah, deeply uncomfortable. And the article sums up the single how.
With a very blunt statement. It's not just a song, it's an indictment.
An indictment. Wow. First, the album is a grenade and a critique. Now the single is an indictment. They are definitely not pulling any punches.
No, the art is presented as deliberately confrontational. And again, for anyone curious, this track is out there on platforms like Apple Music, and it's featured on that contest page too.
Okay, so we have the band, the sound, the album concept, the single. How does all this translate live? The article called their shows a ritual.
Yeah, that's the word used. Seeing them live is not just to attend a concert, it's to witness a ritual.
A ritual? That sounds more intense than just a gig. What makes it ritualistic?
Incense, silence, masks, war paint, and surreal transformations.
Okay, incense and silence set a mood. Masks, war paint, transformations. Sounds visually striking and probably ties into the personas. They're creating a whole atmosphere.
Definitely seems like it. An immersive environment. It suggests a powerful connection, or maybe confrontation. The article says the band is peeling back performance layers to lay bare their emotions. It sounds cathartic, maybe, for everyone involved.
Possibly. And Virus, the vocalist, is central to this ritual.
Yeah, he's described as commanding attention like a priest of pain. There are visual details mentioned, like a crimson smear across one eye.
Priest of Pain. Leading this intense ceremony, the crimson smear adds to that visual of pain or conflict.
And his lyrics apparently feel like confessions,
Yeah.
linking back to that Max side, the wounded soul. He's presented as more than just a singer. He's a vessel for the whole experience.
A vessel for the pain, the critique, the ritual itself. It sounds like the live show is a direct, maybe even amplified, extension of the album's confrontation.
That's the impression given. Now, related to all this unique artistic approach, the article mentions something interesting about how they release their music, their strategy.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
It says they kind of refuse streaming fame in certain ways. Specifically mentions no YouTube videos and no Spotify clutter.
Wait, no YouTube, no Spotify clutter, but didn't we just say their music is on Spotify and Apple Music and the contest page links directly to it?
Exactly. This is where it gets a bit confusing or maybe nuanced. The article does present this philosophy. It talks about believing in the sacredness of discovery.
Sacred discovery, meaning?
Meaning a true fan should have to seek them out, find them through listening, not just passively scrolling on platforms like YouTube or getting lost in Spotify's algorithms.
Okay, so the philosophy described in that one source is about being intentionally harder to find, avoiding the mainstream fire hose of content.
That's the stated idea.
Yeah.
But, as you pointed out, their actual presence is on major streaming platforms. And maybe most significantly, they're competing very publicly in this online contest.
Right. The America's Next Top Hitmaker contest is all about visibility, clicks, votes, the opposite of being hard to find or avoiding Spotify clutter.
It's a definite point of tension. Doesn't mean their strategy changed, or maybe they distinguish between having music available passively on Spotify versus actively pushing content like YouTube videos, or is the contest just a strategic exception?
It's hard to say for sure from just this, but it definitely adds another layer of complexity to them. It makes you wonder how they reconcile that philosophy with this very public contest push.
Which brings us squarely to that contest.
Yeah.
America's Next Top Hitmaker. This seems to be a major focus for them right now.
Yeah, moving from the sort of philosophical and artistic realm to something very concrete and competitive. So, again and forever is competing under the name Virus Vox.
That's right. Using the singer's persona for the contest entry, you can find their page on the contest site, tofitmaker.org. It's specifically tofitmaker.org 2025 Virus-Vox.
Got it. Virus Vox. And what's actually at stake here? What are the prizes?
They're pretty significant standard industry stuff. The contest page says you, the public, decide the winner. And the prizes are $50,000 cash.
50 grand. Okay.
An appearance feature in Rolling Stone magazine.
Rolling Stone, huge exposure.
And a performance slot at the Global Citizen Festival.
Global Citizen Festival in New York City. Wow. Okay, money, major press, huge festival stage. Those are definitely big career boosters for any band. Where do they stand right now?
According to the source material we have, their status was listed as currently 6th in their group.
6th place in their group. So they're in the mix, but they need to climb. Is there a deadline coming up?
Yes, a really important one mentioned. The first cut is apparently Thursday, June 5th at 7 p.m. PDT.
Okay, June 5th, 7 p.m. Pacific. Depending on when people hear this, that could be very soon or might have just passed. That's a crucial cutoff point.
It really is. And this circles back to that strategy question. Why is this band, with their apparent aversion to easy fame, going all in on a public online voting contest?
Yeah, what's their reasoning?
Well, the article frames it through their artistic mission again. It says their participation is more than just an attempt at fame. It's a call to arms, an invitation to reflect, resonate, and revolt.
A call to arms. So the contest isn't about popularity for them. It's what did it say? A reckoning.
Exactly. The article positions it as using the contest platform to deliver their message and challenge a wider audience. That's the ideological angle.
Okay, but what about the practical side? The contest page itself has a Q&A, right? What does it say about the prizes? Like the Global Citizen Festival slot.
Ah, right. The Q&A is a bit more direct. About the festival, they say it would serve as a launch pad to stardom.
Launchpad to stardom. Okay, that sounds pretty much like traditional ambition.
Yeah, less reckoning, more career move. They also call the festival the perfect space for an international band like Again and Forever to share their music. So professional advancement and reaching more people.
A mix of motives there. What about the $50,000? Where would that go?
The Q&A is specific. Marketing and promotion funds. The goal is stated as helping more people learn about them and spreading the Again and Forever culture of rock music globally.
Okay, so using the prize money to fuel their movement, basically, to grow their audience and spread their specific brand of rock.
So if you put it all together, the contest offers these very real, tangible industry benefits. But the band, or the narrative around them, frames the pursuit of those benefits as serving their larger artistic and ideological mission.
Using the system to critique the system, maybe? Leveraging mainstream tools for their anti-mainstream message. It's definitely a balancing act.
It really makes you think about how artists navigate this stuff today. And for listeners who are drawn in by all this, the music, the message, the mystery, and want to support them in this contest, the Virus Vox page lays out how to do it.
Right. So how can people actually help Virus Vox move up from 6th place?
The most basic way is the free daily vote. The page says, cast your daily vote below. Simple, direct.
Okay, 1 free vote per day on our page. What else?
You can have more impact by voting by donation. This is tied into supporting Global Citizen's mission to end extreme poverty.
Ah, so donating money gives you votes for the band, but the money actually goes to charity.
It's operated by an organization called colossal.org for DT Care, which is a registered charity, and they grant the donations to Global Citizen. So your support for the band also aids that cause.
That's an interesting model. Connects fan support to philanthropy. Is there anything else mentioned about voting?
Yes, a very time-sensitive thing. A limited time, 2x votes offer.
Double votes. Okay, that's significant. When does that end?
Tuesday, June 3rd, 9 p.m. Pacific. Again, depending on when you're hearing this, that window might be incredibly short or already closed, but it was a key detail provided.
Crucial timing detail for maximizing impact if the window is still open. Are there specific donation amounts listed for votes?
Yeah, the page shows tiers. Options for getting 50 votes, 100 votes, 200 votes, or 500 votes tied to different donation levels.
Well, listeners can choose how much impact they want to make, knowing it supports both the band in the contest and Global Citizen.
Exactly. The page also mentions stuff about free registration for contestants and text updates, but the main ways for listeners to help are the free daily vote and the donation votes, especially with that potential double vote multiplier.
Okay, so the call to action from the source is pretty clear then. Help Virus Vox become America's next top hitmaker while supporting a great cause.
That sums up the practical contest aspect perfectly. It's this blend of artistic ambition, mainstream competition, and a charitable tie-in.
It really shows them trying to leverage a platform while theoretically staying true to their challenging identity.
Yeah, using the contest to get the resources, the money, the exposure to spread their potentially uncomfortable message even further.
So, thinking about the big picture as we wrap this up, Again and Forever seems really focused on legacy, don't they? The article talked about them choosing the harder path, truth through discomfort.
Truth through discomfort. That phrase really seems to capture their whole approach, from the personas to the album concept to the live shows.
And this album, Chronicles of a Serial Killer, it's positioned as their defining statement so far, right? An opus not just of music, but of meaning.
Yeah, intended to be incredibly significant.
So this confrontation with uncomfortable truths is ongoing. It's core to who they are as artists.
Which leads back to the fundamental confrontation they seem to be pushing. It's about the questions their art raises. Who are the real killers? Is it the monsters who take lives? or the culture that gives them a platform.
Boom, right there. It shifts the focus entirely. It's not just about the individuals, it's about the whole cultural ecosystem, media, audience fascination that elevates them. They're indicting the culture itself.
Exactly. This isn't just music. This is a confrontation.
No ambiguity there. And the confrontation is aimed squarely at, well, us, the listeners, the audience.
Yeah. So ask yourself, are you just listening or are you finally hearing?
That's powerful. It challenges you, the listener, directly. Don't just consume the sound or the shock value. Engage with the difficult questions being asked about society, media, and your own participation in it.
It turns the artistic statement into a personal challenge. Are you passively receiving or actively processing the critique?
Okay, so just to quickly recap this whole deep dive, we've looked at Again and Forever, this LA-based Latin American band with global ambitions, enigmatic personas, and a heavy, devastatingly deliberate sound.
We dug into their album, Chronicles of a Serial Killer, understanding its provocative concept as a critique of society's voyeurism, using reimagined classic songs as the vehicle.
We focused on the single, Chop Suey, Reimaged, seeing it as a direct indictment, using the lens of Charles Manson to force listeners to examine that thin line between victim and voyeur.
We talked about their intense, ritualistic live shows, designed to evoke powerful emotional responses, and the interesting tension between their stated anti-streaming philosophy and their actual online presence and contest participation.
And we covered their current run as Virus Vox in America's Next Top Hitmaker, the big prizes at stake, their complex motivations, and the specific ways you can support them, including that urgent double vote offer tied to a charity.
It paints a picture of a band walking a tightrope, using mainstream platforms to push a deeply critical, often uncomfortable message, challenging the very audience they need to succeed in that contest.
It definitely leaves you with a lot to think about regarding their art, their strategy, and maybe even your own media habits. They're clearly not aiming for easy listening or simple fandom.
No, they seem to demand engagement, reflection, maybe even a bit of self-examination from anyone who encounters their work.
So, as Virus Vox continues in the America's Next Top Hitmaker contest, maybe keep that final question from the source in mind. Are you just listening, or are you finally hearing? It really invites you to dive deeper into their music, their message, and decide for yourself what to make of this confrontation.
Wandering band of members of a so-called religious cult with a leader they call Jesus has had two of its followers arrested in the investigation of the murder of Sharon Tate and 6 others. Those arrested are 2 women and 1 man, and the Los Angeles police said they would ask murder indictments against several others. 5 women are being held as material witnesses.
Suicide, I'll cry when angels deserve to die. Wake up, grab a brush and put a little makeup. I disgrace to fade away the shake up. Why you leave the keys upon the table? Here you go, create another fable. Grab a brush and put a little makeup. I just try to fade away the shake up. Why you leave the keys upon the table? I don't think you trust in my self-righteous suicide. I'll cry when angels deserve to die. Self-righteous suicide. I'll cry
led a string of murders in the 1960s is dead.
I never told anybody to do anything other than what they wanted to do.
And if they wanted to do murder, that was okay
That was
with
none of
you?
my business, woman. I'm a convict. I'm an outlaw. I'm a rebel. I'm not a Sunday school teacher.
Call me Mr. Feelgood, we can dance and we can fly together. Call me Mr. Feelgood, spread your wings and we can fly together.